What's up? It's another year. Here we are. Scotty Mays, what? Your MC? I know, the best MC in the rally. What? So anyway, a little different, right? COVID 2020. Man, I don't know what to tell you about all this. It's insane. It's breaking up relationships. It's creating relationships. But you know one thing that it is creating in the recovery community is unity. And there is nothing more powerful than to see people united in recovery. It is a beautiful thing. We have a ton of powerful speakers today. Mountains are going to be moved, hope is going to be dealt, and love is going to be shared. So please join me on this beautiful virtual trip through the rally.
Rory, why do you like going to the FOA meeting?
Because I love seeing my friends and having snacks and I like seeing Grandpa's new swimming coffee, and that makes Nana and Mama happy.
All right, everybody. Our first speaker of the day is my good forever friend, Lori Arion. She is the founder of FOA, and she is truly a lifesaver. I'm forever in debt to her.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the rally today. I'm so excited to have this virtual. At first, I was a little upset about it, but I really am encouraged in the message that you guys are going to get today, and I'm so happy that you tuned in. So I really want to give you a little bit of backstory on how FOA came to be. As a person in long-term recovery myself, for 14 years now, when I found out that my daughter was using opiates, it was an animal of a different color for me. I wasn't sure how to help her. I wasn't sure how to help myself. All of those feelings that us families have, I didn't have anywhere to put them or get supported. So I wound up starting to talk to April about what was going on with her. And I found it really interesting, really educational, and it created a bond with us during this time. So I started thinking about all the parents that didn't have a loved one that they could talk to like I was and learn about basically addiction as an illness. That's what she was doing. So I, on a whim, started FOA in October of 2014. Late October, November 6th, we had our first support meeting. So if you do the math, that was a couple weeks. So I didn't really have time to market it or anything. It was in the paper. My husband and I went to the classroom in Huber Heights where we were holding it. And I told him, when nobody comes, we'll just put a flyer up and we'll go to Waffle House. And little did I know that 6 people showed up that day. And that's when we'll say FOA was born. Any part of the family, friends, anyone touched by addiction is welcome to come. Our heroes and our warriors are our people in recovery because, like April, they're the ones that oftentimes teach us the things that us families need to know about not enabling and the culture and when to help, when not to help, and what worked for them. Other families empower their peer families by sharing how they handled a certain situation that a new family is now experiencing. I mean, let's face it, guys, this is a roller coaster for us all. And you're not getting off the roller coaster, but there's different spots on the roller coaster. And that's what we do, is we just help anyone touched by addiction navigate this roller coaster. But we have met every Wednesday solid, and we're in our 7th year. And during that time, things have evolved. We went from the small classroom to a church in Oakwood. We met there for probably a year. And then from there, we went to the Life Enrichment Center. And I want to say that we've been there since 2015. Well, before COVID hit, we had an average of 70 to 80 people coming every week. That's a lot of people who are taking out time on a Wednesday night to get support for their family or for themselves. And because of the stigma of addiction, it takes sometimes families months to show up, because let's face it, getting support for addiction is the last thing we want to be doing and the last thing we want to be talking about to our friends and family. But I'm telling you, every bit of 70 to 80 people come every week.
I never thought my family would be impacted by addiction, but when it was, we needed tools and resources for our family to learn about the disease. And that's when we found FOA. In 2015, my daughter Jackie came to my wife and I. She told us that she had been using heroin and she couldn't stop and she needed our help. We really didn't know what to do, so we looked online. We found a place for her in Florida that she could go, and so we made the arrangements and helped her get there. While she's gone, we were comforted because we knew she was going to be okay, but we didn't know what to do. What do we believe, not believe? There's so many questions, and we just didn't know how to be prepared when she came home. So we started looking for some help. A lot of support groups are out there for those in recovery, but not for the family. And we happened to go to an event, a heroin awareness event in Dayton, and there was a group called FOA there. So we went, talked to them because it said families of addicts. That was intriguing. So we got to talking to them, found out that their meetings were open for anybody. So my wife and I went for a few weeks in a row just to see what it was all about. Being able to learn how to communicate with my daughter and trust my daughter and interact with my daughter, those are all things that they talked with me and challenged me to make those changes, because I had to change that in order for us to work on a relationship and rebuild that when she came back. Not only were there family members, but there were those in recovery, and they were sharing their stories. And so hearing some of their stories, it made me have hope that our daughter could beat this. Through that time, my wife and I were learning strategies, and we were actually putting them into practice in our home. We started talking more as a family, and we also started sharing some of this education and perspective that none of us had any experience with. So as we started seeing changes between our communications in preparation for our daughter coming back, we felt like this is obvious that this is a strong bond and this is a strong message that needs to be carried out to others. And so that's when we decided, to approach FOA and say, could we do something like this in Clark County? So in December of 2016, we had our first meeting here. We've had meetings every Tuesday since then. And in that time frame, we've helped well over 150 families. And we've had around 4,000 people attend our meetings. By bringing that here, we've established this network in Clark County. So it's really good to have a lot of different demographics and a lot of different people and experiences available to help people. So we're able to connect people and we're able to be there to support each other, and that's what our Tuesday night meetings are. In 2019, we're at the annual rally for FOA in Dayton, and I had a student come up to me for information and then realized it was me. And was curious, Mr. Silvas, what are you doing here? And so I shared our story about our daughter, and the student shared with me a story about her family member that was affected. And this is a 10-year-old girl. And from that point, we kind of had this bond of, we checked in with each other throughout the times whenever I would see her at school, but it also showed me that it's everywhere. The addiction issue is in our front yards, in our backyards, and we really have to take the initiative to be out there to support those that are impacted by it. And that's one of the things that FOA has done is provided that opportunity for me to be able to give back to my community and help my community, and also for my community to help me when I need it. Through the years, as our daughter has experienced the ups and downs of addiction and recovery, our family has also experienced those same ups and downs. But with the tools and the support that we have from FOA, we've learned how to deal with those situations And we're also able to use that same premise when we have some of our members that are experiencing the struggles with their family members. Because in the end, we are all stronger together, and that's what FOA is all about.
Stories like this are a small example of the powerful impact that FOA has had on the lives of families that have been touched by addiction. This is only possible through your volunteerism, awareness, and financial support. If you'd like to learn more, please visit our website at www.foafamilies.org. Thank you for helping us be stronger together.
So currently, right now, we have sister sites in Springfield. We have a sister site in Van Wert, Ohio, and Tri-County, Sidney Dark, and Miami County. Those directors are awesome people. I'm sure they are featured also in this virtual rally, and I can't wait for you to hear them. So the sister sites are doing well. They're a little bit smaller, but if anyone is looking for help, definitely know that you can attend those sister site meetings as well. All of that is listed on our website, foafamilies.org, in 2 different places. So you can always access the meetings there. We've kind of become the go-to for callers. And I'd say every year we get at least probably 400 calls, emails, texts, some way that someone has contacted us. They're either on the verge of a breakdown, a family verge on a breakdown, they don't know what to do. It's a person who's seeking recovery and they don't know where to start. It could be, I'm homeless and I don't know where to live. I mean, anything having to do with addiction and recovery and all of the situations as a result of that. And so we answer the phone and we help them, we support them. We are a connector to all of the other great services that you're hearing about today. Providers and other nonprofits. And rather than trying to duplicate those services and think that we're great at everything, what we do is we connect people to those great services. And so we do that. Like I said, there's about 400 of those every year. In addition to that, we have something called the Birthday Blessings Hardship Fund. And the funding for that comes from your Facebook events and from other fundraisers that we've had. And it's a little fund that we help people with who have reached a barrier in their recovery and it's preventing them from having success. So let's say you need help with a month's rent, or you need new tires for your car. We've got bus passes, we've bought beds, we've paid rent, we have done these little kind of like one-time things where it's a hiccup in your financial plan and you need help, and that's where we stand in. So we've helped so many people with things. Another thing that we do is we partner with Banyan, our co-sponsor, and I am so thankful for this partnership. And what we do is when they have a person who is ready to access their treatment, keeping in mind they're in Florida and they have other locations outside of Ohio, when they have an individual that needs a flight in order to access treatment, they're not able personally to do that for them. So that's when they call us. And what we do is we pay for that flight and we book the flight for them and make sure they get on it. And there's so many moving parts to recovery. What we like to do is help those pieces align. I feel like it's all about alignment. If there is a break in your recovery journey, that break could mean you're either left hanging, you're left jumping, you don't know what to do next. And so we're about aligning and connecting the pieces so that if it is your will, you just keep moving right along. And so that flight to initially get treatment started is so important. And so we do that. We do a lot of outreach events alongside other providers and let people know that we're around. We also are part of a fentanyl test strip program, and where we distribute fentanyl test strips. And we've done a lot of Narcan training. So we're also part of harm reduction in that way. So there's a lot of behind the scenes things that we're doing that I think people don't really know about, and just know that, it's our passion to help people access recovery, to help families understand about addiction and help themselves and help their loved one and support them in their recovery. One thing I want to say that I never expected is our children. We oftentimes have children come to the meetings, and as a matter of fact, there's a group of 3 or 4 girls that have been coming since birth, and they're turning 3 now. And they've been coming before COVID. They were coming every week, and a lot of times they would see each other. And even though they might not be an active part of the meeting or not necessarily need the meeting, there is so much love there for them and so much positiveness there for them that the trickle-down effect for our kids is something that I never expected. And it's been a huge reward. And I look at it like this. If you take a pyramid like this and you have your people up at the top that are coming to FOA, and then you've got other parts of the family, the siblings, your kid, your children, you've got the grandkids and your friends all on this pyramid, and maybe your loved one that's afflicted is a slice over here. And so by educating the family at the top, that education trickles down to everyone else that comes in contact with them. And now you can start talking about addiction positively. You can use other language and other words. And instead of being angry and resentful and worried and having all of those emotions trickle down into the grandkids or into the children of the afflicted, now you have a whole new mindset about how to think about this. And that comes through, and I see it happening, and it is one of the biggest rewards that I've experienced since starting FOA.
All right, everyone. Next speaker is my friend Donna from Nova Behavioral Health.
Okay, my name is Donna Hawkins. I am the Director of Residential Services here at Nova Behavioral Health, formerly known as Nova House. Many people still know it as Nova House. We changed our name several years ago to Nova Behavioral Health. Actually, when behavioral health became the actual form of services that we offer, including the behavioral aspect. I started at Nova. I'm a former client. I don't mind sharing that. I came through Nova in 1999 as a client. Have 20 years of recovery my own self. I started in Nova as an intern through Sinclair Community College. And I had always felt Nova was really heartfelt in the work that they were doing, the compassionate, really client-centered, and that really touched me as far as wanting to give back. So I went back to Sinclair, got my associate degree in applied science, went to UC, got my bachelor's of applied science, went to Capella, got my master's of applied science. So I'm a dually licensed professional, and working my way through Nova and being a strong client advocate, actually worked for myself as well as for the agency. I was 4 years clean when I decided to go back to school. I was told by my sponsor I needed to have a foundation. So a foundation is extremely important to someone being able to be successful working in the field. Having your own foundational base, understanding why you're doing it, and understanding the difficulties and the barriers that you could face if you don't have your own recovery in place. So I was 4 years clean when I decided that this is what I wanted to do. A really good question. A few years ago, we decided to move the women. The Women's Treatment Center had been here at this 732 Beckman since 1979. We've been offering services to the community for a very long time. About 3 years ago, we decided to move the women out to our Hyde Avenue location, which is at 136 Hyde Avenue, Troy Stanley area. All of our women are located out there, which makes it really nice. It's an isolated area. It's all the women. They really, it's more like women's treatment. We have the straight alcohol drug treatment women as well as the dually diagnosed women at that location. Here at the Beckman location, which is 732 Beckman, which is where we've been for, again, since 1979, offering services to the community. We have our detox unit, which we offer detox for opiates. We do not detox from benzos or alcohol, but we work closely with our community partners, including the hospitals, to ensure that we offer services. We work with Miami Valley Hospital Promise to Hope program. So we bring a lot of the pregnant women here that have detoxed off of opiates and provide that safe environment to those particular clients that need that specialized care. We have our men's unit, which is, we have two men's unit, men's 1 and 2, which holds 18 on each unit. And then we have our dually diagnosed men's unit, which is for people who have a diagnosed mental health as well as substance abuse. There are many people who have the desire to stop using, a desire for change, a desire for no more consequences, but they don't have the willingness to complete what it takes to receive the desired outcome. So desire and willingness, when they meet, we have a chance to help them. I believe that people want to use, that people just absolutely are using because they want to. And the reality is, a lot of times it's not that they want to get high. A lot of times they don't want to feel. So that common myth is a person wants to use just to get high, but it actually is further from the truth that a person, most of the people, including myself, it's escaping feelings, fear of success and failure. So for a lot of individuals, it's not that they just want to destroy their life and their family. They really just want to not feel or in the fear of failures. Actually, I met Lori several years ago. I'm a huge fan of, prior to Al-Anon was a program which I admire, and I'm very grateful that they were there for families who were alcoholics. But with families of addicts, it's a little different. It's really more person-centered, more realistic in the terms of what the families are experiencing. With an alcoholic, it's a little different than someone who's struggling with addiction, overdoses, really having to have those strong foundational boundaries. So I met Lori. They were coming in doing education because we very much believe in family support, that the families need to recover as well, and providing family education. So I've connected with Lori several years ago. I know her really well and grateful for the work that she's done. I've had a personal conversation with her, and I admire the fact that families need support too. Our clients come to treatment, they get coping skills, they learn how to live this life without drugs, but their family needs to learn how to accept a family who's no longer using drugs and what that means. So building that bridge. I believe it offers the help with understanding codependency. It offers, because many clients, parents or loved ones, they've experienced the loss of a loved one, but yet they still have other children and they have other people that they love. And gaining that mutual support of one another, if you haven't lost a child to an overdose and not having the support of someone who, they didn't die heroic, so it wasn't a heroic death, but families of addicts, they come together, and it's more than just grief counseling that some individuals go that they're mixed in with other individuals. But when you have experience and struggle with someone who has, I know at one of the rallies, it was such a huge, it touched my heart, a young man who had lost his mom and his grandparents were trying to raise him. And he's surrounded by recovering addicts and people who are families, and he has a new family. He has that support. So it offers the support for people who really get it, who really understand that it is horrible. It's an awful thing to go through, but it's when you're alone or feeling alone or no one understands, well, they used and they died and it's not a big deal. Well, it's still grief. And to have families to be able to come together, families of addicts, what it says it is that, it's families, but it also provides where the people that are recovering, they come there too, because they also can help the families understand that, yes, your daughter or son, they love you. For the children, yes, your parents love you. Unfortunately, they're dealing with the disease that they have not arrested. So therefore, they're still active. Doesn't mean they don't love you. Doesn't mean that they love the drugs more. It's just that they're sick and they need help. So I think that's the biggest benefit is being able to get just like the 12-step programs, they offer a place for people to get support. Well, FOA gives the families and the recovering addicts a place to support each other. The advice that I have shared countless times in our lobby, countless times on the phone, countless times to individuals in the community is that I understand that you want to help them. You would do anything, pay any amount of money to get them to where they need to be, but it's not your choice to make. So I do refer them to FOA. I refer them to FOA to gain support and the strength to say no. No more can you live in my home. The strength to be able to say, because it's one thing to tell someone that you have to do this and you have to have these boundaries and you have to not be codependent. It's one thing to say that, but to live it is totally different when you have someone that you love that's using. Um, Unfortunately, November of last year, I had my own personal experience. My son overdosed and he died. November 20th of last year. And I've shared with countless moms and dads, when they call, because sometimes they don't make it. And so they'll call me and let me know that a previous client has passed away. And I have, unfortunately, a unique experience of having experienced that myself. And because of that, sharing that same pain, it's very difficult. There are many of us who are still here that are surviving, even though our loved one has passed. And that unique experience, and I tell them you have to get support. You did all you could do, and you just have to get support for yourself, for the people that are still here. So I do often let them know there's an organization, you may not be aware of it, and this is who I suggest you reach out to. I let them know they have meetings. Our clients, we encourage them to go to 12-step meetings when they leave. We strongly encourage community support for families that come up here and they're so angry, because we couldn't keep them here. This is voluntary treatment. They can leave at any time they want to, but the family wants, it's like, why can't you make them well? Why can't you keep them and get them better? And unfortunately, sometimes they just don't understand powerlessness. So referring them to an organization that's been through, the members have been through what they're going through, just offers so much strength to help them get better. A client who is currently in treatment was saying, how long, when can I work for you? And basically, I want to let anyone who knows, it starts with staying clean first. Because again, until they have a foundation, they don't have anything to give. They have to really take care of themselves. I have several staff here that have come through here. So again, just encouraging them that keep that motivation, keep that drive to help someone. In the meantime, continue to help yourself so that you can offer experience, strength, and hope. You can't do that. I usually say a couple years before that person should really be considering taking a job in the field. It is so important to have the foundation that they have actually gone through some things, because recovery is not just recovering the things, jobs, a family, all of those things. It is actually maybe going through the toughest time in your life and not using. Recovery is more than just, never having everything ran smooth. A lot of people are under that misconception that that's what happens. And unfortunately, just because a person stops using doesn't mean they're going to get their family back right away. It doesn't mean they're going to get the job, the relationship, everything is going to be. Right now, I think the most unique experience that I've never had in my 20 years is recovering during a pandemic. It is absolutely amazing. We did not close. We have not closed. We're essential. Governor DeWine had asked us to please keep in mind that opioids, the epidemic has not gone away. We're in a pandemic, but we have an epidemic. So we need to make sure that we provide services to individuals who still need it. So we have continued to do that. We have continued to, all of our clients wear masks, all of our staff wear masks. And together we have been able to show that you can live through the pandemic. I tell my clients all the time, you have a unique part of your story that'll always be part of your story that you recovered during a pandemic. That says a lot. I mean, because we do meetings virtual, but we don't get to take them out to meetings right now. We have to also continue to keep our staff and our clients safe. So, but addiction doesn't go away even in a pandemic. So, treatment services are available to our community. Um, the Adamus Board is very, very helpful in also assisting when people think because their insurances ran out, they can't go to treatment. And NOVA is, we hold hands with the Adamus Board, and we're so grateful for that. So that if a person doesn't have insurance, we have case managers that actually help them apply. So as of right now, it's something that they don't have to think that, oh, I can't go to treatment because my whatever insurance managed care ran out. That we still want them to know that we can still offer services to them. It's really so important to remove those barriers and those obstacles. There's help available in our community. Waiting lists are not as long as they used to be, if at all. You know, we work all of the agencies within the community. We also community partners. Sometimes people don't realize that even if we can't help them and we can't offer what they need, we reach out to other agencies, and we're not in competition with one another. We are in coordination to help save life. So that's really important.
All right. Allow me to introduce my good friend, Phil Plummer.
Hello, everybody. I'm Phil Plummer, currently a state representative for the 40th House District and your former sheriff of Montgomery County. I've been knee deep in the opioid epidemic now for the past 7 years, and unfortunately, it's had a very, very negative impact on Montgomery County and the citizens of Montgomery County. We did a good job combating this issue. We lowered the deaths tremendously, but unfortunately, due to the COVID situation, the problem's spiking again. It's increasing. Usage is up. Our overdose deaths are up again. So, as a community, we really have to buckle down again. We've proven once that we can solve this problem. We need to throw more resources at this problem and work together to help out people that are struggling with addiction. You know, this is a terrible, terrible problem for everybody. And, these people need a hand up. They need somebody to know they love them. We're here to help you. And with support from us, we can change the narrative again.
Good answer. Good answer. So, again, from your perspective, how do you feel like families have been impacted by the opioid epidemic?
Families have been impacted tremendously by the opioid epidemic. They've taken a tremendous hit. They've lost loved ones. People have lost their jobs. People have been incarcerated. Families have been, just torn apart from this. And, God bless the family members that have stuck with our addicts, because everybody needs a support system. So, it's been a double-edged sword. So families have grown closer and families have also been torn apart. So we need to tell family members, please stick with your loved ones, embrace them. This is an addiction problem and love on them and help them through the process because they need your support. FOA is a hidden gem in our community, and I'm hoping that our politicians and people that control the funding embrace them more because we need them. I mean, they're shining stars. Should be a program taken nationally because it's a support system for families. And there's nothing more important to somebody suffering from addiction than family support. We can't drop our loved ones that are addicted. We need to educate the families, give them links to resources, encourage them, educate them, and keep them at the table to support their loved ones because I've seen a lot of negative outcomes from this, but I'm seeing the positive outcomes are when families stick together and help their loved ones. When I meet people that have loved ones suffering from addiction, I immediately tell them to reach out to FOA because it's a tremendous resource for families. The unity of the family is so important in the healing recovery process. So Lori's doing a great job there at FOA. She needs support, she needs help, but she's a very critical piece to this puzzle. So I encourage anybody that has a loved one that's suffering from addiction, reach out to FOA and use them. They're tested, they're tried, they're just a valuable resource, and I've seen them have great impacts in people's lives. Just the fact that, like I said, the usage is increasing, the deaths are increasing due to COVID-19. People are struggling right now.
Mental health is up, suicides are up. So we really need to work together. Like I said, if you suspect a loved one has an addiction problem, get on it right away. You know that people relapse 5, 6, 7 times. I mean, it's a process, and it's very frustrating for people. But stay in the game with your loved ones, stay in the fight, and get them across the finish line because you being there with them might be the difference between life and death.
I hope you guys enjoyed that message. Phil is just an amazing individual. He does a lot for our community. Our next speaker is my good friend, Cody Odom.
So my name is Cody Odom. I am the Tri-County FOA Director. So that means I serve Shelby County, Miami County, and Darke County. And I got involved with this because I used to work in fast food. So these two ladies came in wearing the FOA shirt. And I just started asking questions. We had a conversation. And then next thing you know, I'm connected with Lori, who is the founder of FOA. And we just had a conversation because my mom is in recovery. I come on the family side. And so Lori just thought that this would be a great thing to have, a mom and son run an FOA site. So we welcome anyone. It's a group where we meet every Thursday on the family side and recovery side. And it's all about, eliminating that stigma, educating people, empowering people. If you would have asked me years ago, I would have not told you that people in recovery are awesome because I was part of that stigma. So I love meeting new people in recovery. I love meeting people on the family side to, just educate them and help them with that stigma that I once had. We'll show up to the town hall meetings to make a presence. And a lot of times, people who go there think, oh, we don't have a problem, so that can be a challenge. Even though we're not seeing it, things are still happening. Honestly, when my mom and I helped a mother get her son into treatment, and that was probably the best milestone that we really had, because it took him a lot to get there, and his mom was very proud. So this mom, basically had nowhere to go. She was calling people, and people were just kind of giving her the runaround. So she called my mom and I, and we actually were able to that next day meet with her and her son at a treatment center to get him in.
John is an attorney from California who's doing a lot of important work with our good friend Ryan Hampton.
So I'm John Thornton, and I'm with a firm here in Southern California named Andrews and Thornton. We've been in practice since the turn of the century now, I could say 20 years or so. We practiced before that, but my firm's at 20 years of existence. And we became interested, I think, originally because of some personal experiences that we had. The son of a real good friend of mine became dependent, and I learned through him about his personal journey and the struggle that's required to achieve recovery and to maintain recovery. And so I had not understood the full scope of how life-changing dependence and the struggle for recovery is. And once I learned that, all of a sudden the headlines that I was reading in the major press, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, about the problem became real tangible. I thought, this is affecting a great many people. This is affecting large numbers of ordinary Americans who have been treated for nothing more than pain. And pain, of course, is a big thing. In alleviating pain, I understand why doctors were susceptible to the kind of promotion that they were eventually subjected to. But so that's how I first became interested, through a friend. And then then when we started to investigate what had happened and how this had all occurred and followed the story, we really learned that the opioid crisis was a man-made crisis, and that it was made by some unscrupulous and I would argue criminal conduct on the part of people that are experienced in the pharmaceutical industry. The Sacklers came up through Pfizer. They've been promoters for years. So once I started to understand how major it was, and that it really was a system, it was a problem that was the result of greed. So I had always sort of assumed that people became addicted because they were dealing with various pain syndromes, and they perhaps too much was prescribed or something. I didn't realize until certainly the last 2 or 3 years that there had been a systematic program by Purdue, and it's Purdue that we're litigating cases against and bankruptcy claims. So it really fits into where I've come from and where I'm going. I was astounded to realize that this pharmaceutical company, Purdue, and the Sacklers had systematically decided that this was a market opportunity to promote and expand the market. And they came up with this drug, OxyContin, which is really unlike any other opioid. It has a slower release into the body, and which has very little to do with addiction. But they marketed this product as a sort of an addiction-proof opioid. They went against all that the medical community had learned about how careful prescribing practices needed to be, and they said, no, you don't have to be careful. And in fact, they put guilt on the doctors. They suggested to the doctors that the doctors weren't treating their patients correctly, that they were letting their patients suffer pain needlessly. And then they hired an awful lot of doctors to help promote this concept that pain was being mistreated by doctors, and that more opioids were necessary. So I really think it was probably Ryan Hampton originally, who's a client of ours, first let us know about Lori and Anita and the organization. And once I started studying, I realized that Dayton was sort of an epicenter. It was sort of a microcosm of this problem, and it impacted Dayton so badly. And so my plan, actually, when we started representing clients who, and not just from the recovery community, also from the grief community. I mean, the consequences of addiction, as you know, are oftentimes fatal. It was my dedication and my plan before COVID. I was going to go out every weekend, and I was hoping to become more knowledgeable, more in touch with my clients and with their situations. And so FOA was one of the organizations that I went to pre-COVID, and I went to a meeting, and I was permitted to speak at the meeting and to meet a number of the members and to kind of get a feel for what this support group was doing. And that was, I mean, it was one of the most uplifting experiences I've ever had in my life. There's something about seeing groups organized from the ground up and address these gigantic problems, one person at a time. That was very inspirational, and I was really looking forward to it. There were a number of 5K races that were planned, and I've got a hip prosthesis, but I can get along 5K all right. I think I was hoping to become much more knowledgeable through interaction with the community, and unfortunately here we are on a screen now. or else I'd have been back there for your rally that's coming up, because it's one thing to represent clients, and I certainly take that very seriously. We can talk about that if you're interested, but I really wanted, and Andrews and Thornton, and Andrews, my longstanding partner. I mean, we wanted to be a part of this movement, and we're the lawyers representing a number of members of the movement, but we also wanted to be a part of this movement because in so many ways, this movement is more part of the solution than any top-down governmental program is ever going to be. I really just want to tip my hat. I'm sorry I'm not back there. I'm sorry that I'm not able to, with COVID and everything, to spend more time on the front line because you're doing the good work, and organization, FOA in particular, is an amazing organization. And I think there's a number of such organizations out there. I'm sorry I haven't been able to meet more. It's an activism. It's a dedication. It's a conviction that has been brought, and I salute FOA for the work you're doing.
All right, I hope you all are enjoying yourselves. This is a little unorthodox, I get it, but let's have some fun. Allow me to introduce the next guest, Melanie Silvas.
Support for families is so important because I think everybody who has a family member that's struggling with addiction feels that they're alone. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to say to their addict, and learning how to stop enabling them, setting your boundaries, doing some self-care for yourself is so important. And learning how to communicate with your addict is, I think, one of the most important things a family member can learn to do, because a lot of times they need you to listen, just listen, and not try to solve things for them, but just listen. So a lot of times we are asked actually how somebody can get involved, like a family member or somebody close to the family would like to get involved. And honestly, you can come to the meetings, bring people that are also struggling, people that you know struggling, to come to a meeting so they can learn and be educated as well. You want to donate your time, even if you don't have time, I guess, and you can donate some money, that would be also very helpful. And if you have resources, something that maybe you would like to share, maybe it would be helpful for families or those in recovery, that is also very important that you could do. When we decided to bring it to FOA to Clark County, we actually were contacted by Mental Health and Recovery Board, and they were able to help us with a grant that we have a building now that we have our meetings in, and we do events in there for those in recovery and family members. This past couple years, we have done some free events for family members and in recovery, like a paint and pastry day or night, I guess, day, and it's been really fun. We've had a lot of great turnouts. If you go to our website, which is FOA Bridge of Support, and actually FOA's main page, there are photos uploaded there of people with their canvases and their paintings that they've done. We have a wonderful instructor who does things for free, Trish Williams. She has been wonderful being down at the bridge to help us keep it open during the days and things like that too. You can visit and make a donation on our website, FOA Families of Addicts.
Allow me to introduce our next guest. Niraj Altani has a very powerful story about a family member who was affected by alcoholism.
Hi, everyone. This is Niraj Altani, State Representative for the 42nd House District. My district is the southern part of Montgomery County, the southern suburbs of Montgomery County, and truly an honor to be here with you. Of course, wish we could be together in person, but hope that you all are staying healthy and safe at home during this economic and health crisis. I just want to thank Lori and everyone at FOA for inviting me to be here, and truly an honor to speak once again at this rally. As we see, during this virus, addiction is not going away. The problems we see, with addiction, whether it is with opioids or other drugs or alcohol, continues, and if not exacerbated by the fact that people can't see necessarily the family and loved ones and friends, and also unfortunately there has been a lot of job loss that has occurred, and a lot of devastation. And so if there's ever a time that we need an organization like FOA to provide support, to provide counsel to those who are families of addicts, or those who are struggling with addiction themselves, now is that time. At the State House, we are doing a lot with at the State House. We are doing a lot with this issue, and have done a lot, and will continue to do more. We spend over $1 billion through the Medicaid program on medically assisted treatment for those in need. And so as we continue to create policies, we need to hear from you and those who are struggling on the day-to-day, or are family members of those who are struggling day-to-day, on what can we do to make life better for those struggling with addiction and their families, but also to solve it, right? We want to get treatment to as many people as possible to stop this addiction. Recently, I started talking about, and have never really talked about, but have started talking now about my journey, my family's journey in this issue. My father was a severe alcoholic, and growing up, that's what I knew and I saw. I luckily am not afflicted with those with that issue, but could be. And so I am very careful myself about not drinking a lot, if not rarely. But I saw what I had to go through as a child with an alcoholic father, and it was a daily struggle. I would frankly stay at school as much as I could, and would join clubs so that I didn't have to go home. I would sneak to other friends just to get homework done, right? So that I didn't have to face that at home. And so I have a deep understanding of this issue, and I understand obviously that alcoholism is different than perhaps other addictions, but I do understand these struggles as someone who was a family member of someone who was addicted and afflicted. And so know that I understand, and that if I can ever be of help or service to anyone, please do reach out to me and my office, and would be happy to help. And so thank you once again. Thank you to FOA and the great work that FOA does, and anything I can do to be of service, please do let me know. Thank you.
All right. How we doing out there? We doing good? All right, let's keep this rolling with my next friend, Shane Manson.
My name's Shane Manson. I'm from Van Wert, Ohio. About 5 years ago, my daughter called me up on the phone one day and said, Dad, I'm addicted to heroin. And that kind of blew me backwards. And so I quickly jumped in the car, left work, went to where she was, and started discussing things with her. had absolutely no idea what to do, and spent 3 days trying to call places to get her into rehab. We have a local place here in town, but they wanted 5 weeks before they could assess her. Called all over the U.S. and finally found Nova House in Dayton. And of course, she had no insurance, no money, no anything of that nature. And Nova House found a scholarship for her because she was outside of Montgomery County and had children. And you know how with addictions go, she checked herself in, and 10 days later, she checked herself out. Anyway, that went on and off for the next couple of years. She had gotten herself into some trouble with the county law enforcement, spent some time in the county jails. They let her out, and she went to a rehab center down in Southern Ohio for about 6 months, and came home and was on probation, and she came to our house. And then she was doing okay for like the first 2 or 3 weeks. And then one evening, she took off in my old van, and she had a curfew, and she missed her curfew. We called her, we couldn't find her. Called everybody that we knew, we couldn't find her. And after exhausting everything that we could do, we decided, well, we're just going to go to bed. She's out someplace and she'll make her way back home. And about 3 o'clock in the morning, my wife wakes up. We sleep upstairs out of just a good sleep, and decides to walk downstairs. And we found our daughter, she found our daughter in a full-blown overdose standing in the doorway of the bathroom. She immediately threw on some clothes, got her to the hospital. Of course, at that time, we knew nothing about Narcan. And they Narcaned her a couple times at the hospital. Long story short, she had been shooting up in different places, and through the course of being in the hospital that night, they found that she had a very bad illness around her heart. So they sent her to a hospital over in Lima because of all of the infection that was around her heart. And you know, here we are, we're parents, we have no idea what to do. We live in a small town, small community, about 11,000 people. And so I said, we got to do something, because there's got to be people out there that's just like we are. And I just can't turn my back on it anymore. And we started looking around. We went up to Toledo and looked at a couple places up there that they had some groups. One of them was a national group. But it seemed like they had given up on their kids, and we didn't want to give up on our daughter. And so one afternoon, I just started breezing the internet, and I was just going through it, and I found FOA. And that was 3 years ago. So I just called Lori up on the phone, and Lori and I started talking about stuff, and she invited me down to a meeting, and they were doing a rally out at the Nutter Center. So I joined them out there, saw kind of what they were about, went to a couple meetings. Her and I hit it off really well. And that was in August, September timeframe. And in January of 2018, we started here in Van Wert. And we've done really well. Granted, our biggest thing is getting to people to break the stigma in a small community. They don't want anybody to know that their loved one is in addiction. So our numbers are low, but at times compared to others, we do pretty good. So that's how we got started. Well, we have our weekly meetings. there for about 3.5 months. We were all video. We've gone back to live meetings, but it's usually only a half a dozen of us or less. Okay. Because there's a lot of people that's just still afraid of it. Some of the other things that we have done is we've been in parades. We've been at festivals. We were actually going to hold a rally for recovery in July in Fountain Park here in Van Wert, and of course that got canceled. And Scotty May was going to come up and be our MC, and Connor was going to be the other MC, and it's never been done in Northwest Ohio. And I had a lot of people wanting me to get this done, but of course we couldn't because of the COVID things. And one of the other things, because we have guardianship of our 16-year-old grandson, because of what my daughter has done in the past. One of my other passions is educating youth. And unfortunately, it's gotten canceled twice, and it's probably going to get canceled again. But we raised $42,000 to bring a group from Wisconsin to hit all 5 of our middle school, high schools, and vocational schools in Van Wert County. And they were also going to come back in like 6 months after they were here, and they were going to teach seniors how to be leaders of high school kids in a program that could be continued at school, kind of like a school club, because they didn't talk only about substance abuse, but they talked about bullying and mental health issues and standing up and having a voice and not being afraid to tell somebody that, hey, leave this guy alone. You know, he's a good guy. Just, you know. But yeah, we've done that. I'm always speaking to groups anytime that I can get the chance. We're a member of the United Way here in Van Wert, so I get to meet a lot of people that way. Those are the kinds of things we do. The first thing that I would do is let that person talk to me and listen, okay, and glean as much information out of them as I can possibly get out of them. I would try my best to find out drug of choice, whether it's alcohol, opiates, meth, anything of that nature. Our mental health agency here in Van Wert has gotten a lot better. So that's kind of my first thing is, hey, we can get you in pretty quickly for assessment here in Van Wert. But if that's not their cup of tea, we have other resources in Fort Wayne, in Toledo, in Columbus, clear on the other side of Ohio, that I can get recovery beds pretty quickly. The one on the other side of Ohio has 37 beds, detox beds. The one up in Toledo has got about 30. And I know people there. Matter of fact, I have a good friend up in Toledo. So I make a phone call, I could get somebody in. And then we got some information packets that we hand out to people. And we just try to care for that person as a parent, grandparent, because we see a lot of grandparents, and just help them navigate that road. No matter what avenue it is, what age it is, whether they have kids. You know, we told our at the time 11-year-old grandson what was going on. Of course, he was in some therapy, and we would talk to the therapist, but she said, you know, he needs to know. And it's worked. It's been good. It's been good for Connor, and it's been good for us. And I think it's been good for his mother. Unfortunately, Northwest Ohio is a desert when it comes to mental health and substance abuse. It's just that way. There's no good psychiatrists. There are no really good psychologists. because of the fact that Northwest Ohio is made up of small towns.
Mhm.
You know, we don't have a Dayton, we don't have a Cincinnati or a Columbus in this area. The biggest town is Toledo, and that's 2 hours north of us. So it's changing. Don't get me wrong, it's changing. Hospitals up in Fort Wayne, which is a 45-minute drive, and hospitals in Lima have done things to improve the mental health capabilities and the help with addiction, but it's nowhere near what big cities are. Now, granted, big cities have a heck of a lot more of it than we do, but we still have probably 1 or 2 people die every quarter, and that's not good.
All right, everyone, let's keep the party going with my good friend Terry Rust from Recovery Defined.
Hi, my name is Terry Rust. I'm the executive director at Recovery Defined. I got connected to this organization through the 3 owners, Nick, Todd, and Dan, sought me out to become executive director for them because I had worked for a couple of them before, and it was just really exciting what they planned out. So I jumped on board. We are located physically in Montgomery, Butler, and Warren County. We have a site in each county. We also serve whoever comes to us from whatever county they come. We don't, stop who comes in from different counties. We offer individual services, group services for intensive outpatient and outpatient. We also have within our organization the capability to do mental health for the co-occurring. We have a psychiatrist and an MAT doctor on board with us that come in and serve the clients too. We also have Recovery Housing. It's a different company, but closely affiliated with Recovery Defined, owned by the same owners. We have 4 houses in Dayton and 1 house here in Lebanon, and we have worked closely with 1 house that we don't own that's in Middletown. So we have approximately about 70 people who are in recovery housing. I think that we have to talk about it a lot. We have to be out there. We have to tell about our services. And really, we're a company who, wherever you want to go for services, go for services. It doesn't have to be Recovery Defined. We want people to get connected. And we know that, no one place is the end all to be all. But we connect with different organizations. I attend a whole lot of different networking meetings and connecting to people. Not as many as I'd like during COVID, but we still do a lot of virtual, and you see people on there and you're saying, hi, how you doing? And then you meet up and you talk. So I think that people to connect to recovery services just need to know they're there. And then it's up to the recovery services to be inviting, to meet the person where they are in their recovery, not to have our own preconceived ideas about how recovery should be done, because I don't know them. They have their own journey to take. And so we try to help them through that journey. We don't, whenever we have people who are successful, they go, oh, thank you, you did this for me. And I'll turn around and I'll say to them, no, we didn't do that for you. You did it for yourself. We were just a conduit to your recovery. So it's just important to be where the potential people are that need the help, and to do the outreach and to hit on social media, which, I'm not very good at social media, but, we try to do a post. We try to tell people about recovery and how successful they can be. And some people want it at that point in time and some people don't. But, they always talk about that revolving door in recovery. I don't see it as a revolving door. I see it as a continually open door that, if you're not ready, come back when you are. We'll be here. Well, I think that initially one of the owners, Nick, was talking to Lori at some meeting they had somewhere. He met them, and then he kind of gave me the go ahead to connect. And so virtually, I attended almost all of the virtual FOA meetings. And so then we decided to become a sponsor for the rally because we do believe that FOA plays an important part. I mean, the families, without families and support, it's hard to do recovery. And I think one of the most important things about family knowing about the disease and knowing about the abuse that can happen with the drugs is important. I always tried to invite families in to know more about recovery, because you can have the client there who's recovering and is getting all the jargon and all the skills and everything they need to know about recovery. But if their support system doesn't have the same language and can't talk the same talk, then they're not able to do it. And a lot of family is so frustrated that we try to break down that frustration and help them understand, whether they're too involved in the recovery or not enough involved. Again, that's where the family's at, not where we're at. So, getting that family in and teaching them about recovery is so vitally important to help that client recover. I would offer them support, because I think that they need, if they want to engage in services, or if they just need somebody to talk to, I will try to direct them to where I think they can best be helped. And I would also tell them that their loved one is struggling, and that in this struggle they need support, but they need support for their recovery, not support to continue behaviors that lead back to the use and the addiction, and that there are lots of people out there that can help them. I do mention FOA a lot to family members about how this organization is probably one of the best and the only ones I know of that's organized like you guys are organized, to be able to connect with other people. Just like, group processes are the best treatment for the client, because they get that universality. They get that I'm not alone piece. Well, the same works for the family. The family needs to know they're not alone. There are other people that they can depend on and process with and talk things through and get support. So I try to let them know that they deserve the same attention and the same support as they support their loved one through their recovery.
Great answer, 100%. I love it. Is there anything else that you'd like to add that you've been thinking about that you wanted to speak to that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
Just that it sounds corny, but the whole keep hope alive, that this is not a situation or a public disease that can't be helped, that the stigma behind drug abuse is tremendously strong, and I think that every day those of us who work in the field have to break it down. We have to normalize that, take away the drug piece and show the picture of this person, that this is a human being, that this is a mom, a dad, a brother, a sister, an aunt, an uncle, and just kind of try to normalize the need to continue to reach out and help people. Again, we assist in their recovery. We don't make their recovery good, bad, or otherwise. I think as clinicians, we tend to take on the failures a whole lot more than the successes. Well, neither one of ours is to own. I've had clients pass away, and I've had to process seriously, what could I have done besides? And it all comes down to nothing, as long as I know I did the next right thing and I supported them. But yeah, their loss is monumental. Mm-hmm. Sorry.
All right, allow me to introduce our next guest, Joseph Smith from CareSource.
All right, my name is Joseph Smith. My title is Manager of Community Marketing. I have been with CareSource for 18 years. My responsibility is community outreach for the western region of the state, which covers an area from Cincinnati all the way to Toledo. So I cover about an area of 35 counties. Believe it or not, CareSource is a nonprofit healthcare company that's been around for over 30 years now. We are home based in Dayton, right downtown at Monument, Maine is our main headquarters. We're in all 88 counties. We service families who may be on Medicaid. They may be on Marketplace, which is the Affordable Care Act, whether they're on Medicare, which we have a Medicare Advantage program. And now we have a D-SNP program for folks who are dual eligible, either Medicaid and Medicare combined. So we have really just expanded as a company, continue to grow as a company. We really have committed ourselves to being your healthcare company for life is where we're at. Well, providing them services, on that healthcare in there, we've really been committed to community. We've been at a lot of outreach events with the family of addicts, with Lori and them on a continuous basis here. It's kind of taking a little bit of a different form right now since the COVID's going on, but we've supported their rally, the FOA rally, every year. We've been a sponsor in that and committed to that, holding it down there on Courthouse Square. But we really have tightened it up on, we have case management for folks who are going through recovery and trying to get their health care. We really want to be able to focus on that, not only focus on them, but also the healthcare needs of their families. Well, I think a lot of times people don't believe that people really want to recover. I think folks don't realize that folks are kind of get caught in different situations, and they may not know what that recovery process looks like, what it feels like. And I think that's when you have to have community partners together to help folks really recover fully. Not one agency alone can help a person on recovery, that road to recovery. So I think with a combined effort of all your community partners coming together, like CareSource and FOA, we're able to give a variety of services to help people come out of recovery, to keep moving toward being, fully gainfully employed and being able to have a full quality of life of which they really want. I think you have to be where they're at. You have to come to their communities where they're at, meet them where they're at, not be afraid to engage them, to talk to them, to listen to them, to give them encouragement, to let them know that they can make a difference in their life. I mean, a number of years ago, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, CareSource started this program called Job Connect, where we're offering opportunities where folks say, hey, I do want to make a difference in my life, I do want to make changes, where we have a program called Job Connect where we actually assign them a life coach to help them navigate the system, because a lot of times folks just don't know where to go, they don't know where to start. They may want to have a different opportunity in life, maybe get a different career, have a different opportunity, but assigning them a life coach to kind of guide them and keep them on the right path. So I think the big thing is when dealing with folks who may have an addiction, you have to meet them where they're at. You have to be out in their community. You can't be afraid to intermingle or to talk to them, because they are just like you are, except they may have a little bit of complication in their life right now. But we made a commitment from a whole as a company of compassion and strength to be able to meet you where you're at and to help them along with other community partners to make changes in their life. Well, I think FOA, they bring the other community partners together. I think they're their conduit in the community to bring folks different resources together. And they are, as a matter of fact, expert in that area. I mean, Lori's been doing this for a while, and I think she's in a learning process every day. But we continue to share information. We continue to commit to one another and continue to be there. So like I said, bringing these partners together, everybody's got a little bit of expertise, whether you may have somebody in housing, you got somebody in healthcare, you have someone, dealing with addiction thing. So, we bring together a variety of services, but I think FOA has been that conduit to keep everybody focused and keep them on the same page. Well, I'd give them some referral services. I said, let's reach out to FOA. I mean, they're our, like I said, our matter of fact expert there, and let's start that process. And I have to keep in touch with them and see what's going on, and then let's build a support system around that person. That could be that family member or a friend, and it really does need a support system around them. Like I said, not one agency has all the answers. CareSource doesn't have all the answers, but we want to be their support and give them that support system so they can get on that road to recovery and make that sustainability over the long term is what we really are concerned with. Well, I just want to say, CareSource has been committed to this community. We continue, our services are still out there and available. We have been really innovative as a company here as far as with the COVID going on. Such programs as My Ideal Doc, where folks can talk to a doctor virtually and things of that nature there. We really want to, one thing we are concerned with in the community is with our children who have not been coming to school, but we want to encourage our parents to make sure that their children are getting their immunizations. And that will coincide with some of the healthy programs, incentive programs we have, like our Babies First program, our Kids First program, and we have a Women's First Rewards program for seeking out healthy lifestyles and healthy behavior. So we want our folks to realize, hey, we are still here conducting business every day. Our call center is open every day from 7 to 7, Monday through Friday. So reach out to us if you have questions, concerns. But we are committed to you. CareSource is your hometown company, and we'll continue to provide services here, whether we're in Indiana, Kentucky, West Virginia, and the state of Georgia. We're also in those states because we cover health service for really 1.9 million folks across the United States. And one other quick initiative there, just so you know, CareSource just committed $50 million throughout those states to help improve the access to housing. So that announcement is, so CareSource, like I said, we continue to give back to the community. We continue to be your community partner.
All right, everyone, let's keep the party going with my good friend Michael Hawk from MedMark Treatment Center.
Great, my name is Michael Hawk. I am the Treatment Center Director for MedMark Treatment Center up in North Dayton. We're on North Main Street. We are primarily a methadone clinic. We service people with opioid use disorder, which obviously is at epidemic proportions in the greater Dayton area. We have a little bit of a difference from what you may have heard of in methadone treatment centers, and that we have a real emphasis on counseling, where we don't have people just rushing in the morning, grabbing their methadone and running out the door. We have licensed counselors who are dealing with substance use disorder and dealing with the other issues in their lives, so they can be long-term healthy recovery. I think that makes a real difference. We've been open almost exactly a year now. Our big grand opening of our date was last year at the FOA rally. It was 2 days before we opened for clients. It was a terrific way to introduce ourselves to the community. FOA has been real important in that regard to us. We have some commonality in our mission. I know FOA is very focused on eliminating the stigma that goes along with substance use disorder, and we share that mission wholeheartedly. As a person in long-term recovery myself, I faced that stigma directly and personally from myself, my father who died of his addiction, and my daughter who's an addict in active recovery. We see that people don't want addicts to be anywhere near them. When you go to open a new clinic in town, you have to fight the not in my backyard syndrome. And I look at the people that we serve having a hard time getting jobs because they're on methadone, having a hard time going to 12-step recovery meetings because they tell someone they're using medically assisted treatment. So we have a real mission of helping them to eliminate that stigma in their lives, eliminate the effects of that stigma. The fact that medically assisted treatment is keeping them alive. And we see so many people dying on the streets now. My background in treatment, I worked at the largest and oldest residential treatment center in the greater Dayton area for 7 years, did every job in the building, and had a real passion for my clients. I saw the younger version of myself in many of them. And we would do all the stuff. We did cognitive behavioral therapy and taught them meditation and introduced them to 12-step recovery. And I kept seeing guys walk out the door and die. Walk out that first weekend and relapse and die. And I got tired of it. We've got to have something else. And I'm a huge believer in residential treatment. I think it works. I think we've got some great treatment centers here. Some people need something in addition to that. And that's where we come in, being able to provide the medical basis to keep them alive until they're able to be abstinent, which I think is everybody's long-term goal. I love our success stories. I had a wonderful woman who's one of our clients, came up to me in a store, bawling her eyes out, and showed me, Mike, they gave me keys. Nobody's ever trusted her before. And the fact that she comes into us, She gets her methadone in the morning. She sees her counselor. She was able to hold down a full-time job and get a promotion. That's what we're all about. We're about addicts living healthy, normal lives, being productive members of society, being good moms and dads, and being good family members, and contributing, and not dying out on the streets. And we just got approved for CareSource. We're now able to take all kinds of Ohio Medicaid, which is exciting for us. And I love when a new client walks in who's been in another methadone treatment center. They walk in, and the way that they're greeted, my entire staff is thrilled that they walk in, and people are treated with absolute respect in a very clean, modern, professional setting, like you're going to see your specialist in any other kind of disease. That's the atmosphere we want there and what we're able to achieve. When I was working in residential treatment, Lori called me, wanted to come in and talk to my family. So I was like, well, who in the heck are you? And to see them the last several years grow and blossom and be such an important and vital source for people with addiction in this community, it's been exciting to watch. And I'm so honored to be able to be a co-sponsor of the rally again this year. What little money we can toss in to help FOA achieve their goals is a benefit to the whole community.
What's up, everybody? Scotty Mays. I want to talk a little bit about Brightview. So not only is FOA very special to me, but Brightview is as well. See, I work there. I'm a peer supporter. They gave me a beautiful opportunity to deal hope within their facilities. And I got to tell you, it's unlike any treatment center for me, and this is just me speaking for me, that I've ever not only worked at, but if I was a patient, been to. There's something beautiful about the environment there. It's loving, it's compassionate. We really care about the individuals that come in looking for help. See, the problem is, a lot of times these bridges get burnt, right? And nobody has anybody in their corner. But when they walk through our doors, we are their biggest fans. You know, we're rooting for them all the way. All we want to do is set these individuals up for success, because what they don't understand is that they are stronger than they give themselves credit for. So people like me and many others that I work with, we want to instill that hope within. You know, the counseling, the groups, the medically assisted treatment program there, you combine all of those together and it just lays a foundation for a solid recovery journey. I couldn't be more happy to be a part of the Brightview family, and I encourage you, if you're looking for help and you're struggling, just know we're here for you. And one other thing, if nobody's told you today, allow me to be the first. I love you. Thank you. All right, let's keep partying. Allow me to introduce my next guest, Brittany from Miami Valley Works.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Right now, I have another special guest with me. This is Brittany from Miami Valley Recovery, and she's going to be telling us a little bit about her organization, what she does, and how they serve the folks in recovery and maybe some family members in recovery as well. So, Brittany, thank you much for taking the time to be here. We greatly appreciate your organization and the work that you do. Tell me a little bit about your day-to-day, what you do, and how your organization serves those in recovery.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having us. My name is Brittany Stevens. I'm the CEO of Miami Valley Recovery. Here, we are an outpatient facility running IOP and OP programming. We have medication-assisted treatment and abstinent-based. You know, it's really the preference of the client and the doctor meet together and discuss best possible options. We have about 75 patients right now and are growing every single day.
Awesome.
We're a small organization, but we're very personable and very individualized as well.
So, CEO, how did you stumble into that role there? That's a big title. How'd you do that?
It's about who you know. No, I'm just kidding. The owner and I, we've known each other a great deal of time. We actually grew up together, and he was on these adventures of opening treatment programs and said, hey, I need somebody that I can trust, and I've known you since we were 9. What do you think? And I'm like, all right, let's do it.
Give it a shot, huh?
Yep.
Good deal. So it's this working with individuals in recovery can be somewhat of a challenge because we see a lot of the same stuff. We see the disease in the face every single day. So give me an example of something that you do to help yourself stay motivated to continue on this path. What keeps you going?
Lots of people have asked me that. I think for every 10 that, get you flustered sometimes, there's one that, comes through and says, Miss Brittany, I couldn't have done this without you, or, you have a lot of stability that you see. I started working in recovery in 2005, and a lot of the people I worked with had long-term sobriety. So, I know it can be done. I've seen it, and I see a lot of people that I know in long-term recovery. So that keeps me going. Like, I know it's possible.
Yep. When you see it and you experience it and you know firsthand, like, hey, I knew that guy and I see him in recovery today. That's the hope shot. That's what it takes. So
absolutely.
Knowing
that, when you see the littlest things as somebody being so grateful to be able to drive their car to the grocery store and get groceries, that's something I would take for granted because I can drive to the grocery whenever I want. So when you see somebody that's hit that milestone of getting a driver's license back and they're absolutely just appreciative to get in the car and not have to carry groceries on a bus, that's what keeps us going.
Absolutely, 100%. I'm a big fan of, having multiple options for treatment because, I know not only from personal experience, but also working with folks in recovery that it takes 1, 2, 4, 5, sometimes 10 tries before somebody can actually find recovery. So give me an example of maybe, I think that, so I live in Clark County in Springfield, and I know that oftentimes when I worked in the field, what we'd have to do is give folks a new opportunity in a new location where they didn't know anybody. So at your organization, do you guys take folks from out of town that can come from a complete different environment and just kind of start fresh?
Absolutely. I am all for, a change of scenery. So I don't look at any of the other programs as competitors. I look at them as a collaboration too, because if we don't have something here that we can offer them, I'd rather somebody get treatment. And if that means having to leave the city of Dayton to go do it, let me help you. Yep. We'll work and we'll get you there.
Absolutely. Agree 100%. So how did you first get involved with FOA?
So we got involved with FOA. We were actually all at another location working, and then before we ventured opening Miami Valley Recovery. So we got involved with Lori and FOA back at the other place that we worked at, and we went to a meeting one night, and myself and the owner, and it was just so inspiring. A lot of what's the word? Just a lot of passion and a lot of um, like sincere people wanting help, and the meeting was just very, very motivating, and so we really liked what she was doing, so we decided that we want to be a part of it. So I think this might be a second time we've sponsored a rally, because we just believe in the mission.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. I encourage everybody who's seeking treatment to get treatment, but a lot of times that leaves the family member saying, well, what do we do? Right?
Absolutely.
How do we get help? So do you guys at your agency kind of educate folks on FOA and try to, point folks in the right direction? If you got a family that comes in that's struggling, what advice would you give them?
We get a lot of phone calls too. So I just random people that don't even have clients, or we don't even have them here. It could be a family member asking, what do I do? And so I always guide them to FOA. I'm a big, I encourage fellowship to all my clients. Not everybody does the same type of fellowship, and that's okay. AA, NA, FOA, Celebrate Recovery, whatever it may be. But I always tell them that I've been to FOA, and how inspiring it is. And there are families, and there are addicts, and there are people wanting help there. So FOA is usually my first choice that I send them to, or encourage, I should say. But there's a plethora of options for fellowship. I just always want them to know that, and that FOA is a good one. I said, there's no judging. They do, the milestones that they pass around and do, I think are phenomenal, and just letting people talk and tell their story, and get the help that they need.
Absolutely. I think that a lot of folks struggle with the I can do it on my own mentality, or the fact that they think that, this is a game of willpower. So tell me a little bit about how important is community to an individual's recovery?
I think the community is absolutely important. You get the excuses in active addiction. My community is terrible and there's drugs everywhere. It's a person that's in recovery for about 4 years now said this to me, and it has stuck with me. And he said, it does not matter where somebody lives. If they want to be clean, they'll be clean. It's all about the resources and the community and the fellowship that they have and how engaged they are into their recovery. So, I grew up in Bellbrook, which, if anybody knows Bellbrook, it's a very prominent area. I didn't grow up with drugs outside my door. I grew up in a 2-parent home, and both my parents worked, and my brother's a drug addict. So, at that point, what he said, and then my upbringing, it kind of proves, if somebody wants to stay clean, they're going to stay clean. It's all about the resources and, the village they have behind them helping them.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think that there's not a lack of resources. There's just a lack of resourcefulness, and I think that, oftentimes when someone first enters into recovery and they get clean for the first time, a lot of folks would say, congratulations, what a success story. But in reality, by that person getting clean actually opens up a whole new string of problems. This person may not have a safe place to live. They probably don't have a job. They probably don't have the means to support themselves. So, just being able to connect individuals to resources is oftentimes the best thing we can do, and just get them on their path. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. So I know that there's a lot of folks who enter this field of work that you've been in for some time. What advice or suggestions would you give somebody that wants to enter this line of work, maybe wants to become a counselor, case manager, wants to work with folks in recovery? What would you say to that person?
It's challenging but rewarding. It's very selfless. I don't ever look for a thank you. My thank you is a clean urine for 2 weeks straight, or hey, I showed up for group today. A smile through the lobby when they come in to do their drop, or that excitement that they have, to tell us something about, hey, I'm getting my kid back, or the judge extended my family treatment court date. So, those things, they get excited to tell us, and that's where the reward comes. It's not a, heck yeah, I saved somebody today. It's the reward of seeing the success and the milestones that they're making.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. That's great piece of advice right there. So, I think that on behalf of FOA, we definitely appreciate the support from Miami Valley Recovery. So again, one more time, if folks are interested in seeking treatment or maybe making a referral to you guys, how does somebody contact you?
So they can call our main office. Our phone number is 937-401-8672. They can reach out to, we have a website, we have a Facebook. I believe we might even tweet and Instagram.
Yeah, there's so much work that comes along with this treatment and this field.
Absolutely.
It's not just the one-on-one service; it's promoting the service. It's letting people know you exist.
Yeah.
It's networking in the community. So it definitely takes a team, and it sounds like you guys have a very good team there at Miami Valley Works. So again, Brittany, thank you very much for your time. I can see the passion pouring out through you. I know that it's hard work, but it takes people like you to continue serving the community and just being that ray of hope that people desperately need. So thanks again for being here. And if anybody wants to reach out to Miami Valley Works, you definitely know how.
All right, everyone. Allow me to introduce our next guest, Sheila and Dennis from Harm Reduction. Ohio Harm Reduction even better because it's Ohio. What?
Welcome to Harm Reduction Ohio's common sense approach to the overdose death dilemma. It is our mock safe consumption site, safe injection site, overdose prevention center, whatever you want to call it. But we are focusing on health, science, compassion, and human rights for the drug user. So a person will come up here and say, what is this all about? Well, we would explain what's going on here. We would offer them literature to look at, what they're doing in Portugal and the rest of the world, why an overdose death is not murder, decriminalize drug use and possession. We have something in Spanish, No More Drug War, and then I've got some books that I featured that I recommend for anybody. Then if they want to go to this consumption site, they would sign in over here. And I lifted this off of, I think Insight. I'm not sure. But they would fill it out, and I'd tell them they don't have to give their name, but I would like their date of birth and the date that they're filling this out. And then here in this square, I ask them to put their county. Then I direct them over this way. The intake worker does, and tell them to pay attention to the sign, and I have it right there for a reason, so they have to walk right into it. I tell them to take their time over here at the literature table. They can help themselves to whatever they want to. I have more made, so I'm not worried about that. Oh, I thought this was cool for the indigenous population. And they can help themselves to a button. They can learn all about what Narcan is, Project Dawn, things pertaining to Ohio, treatment centers, whatnot. For rallies, recovery. Then we have our drug tip safety sheet that we pass out. So there's that. And then after they've spent enough time here, oh well, here, let's get this. This is a banner. I'm sorry that I've got this thing in the way, but you'll see why. Okay, so then they would come over here to the nurse, and I'm going to have some cards made up to where they can choose to pretend to either be somebody that snorts, somebody that injects, somebody that smokes, and such. Then I would have the nurse here explain why there are different gauges needle, why the need for a cooker, why the need for a tourniquet as opposed to a belt, why the need for cottons, clean cottons, sterile water, and then an alternative to using your veins, you can do it rectally. And then we would have, first aid kits, alcohol prep pads, just to denote a sense of well-being, medical treatment that they're lacking. Oh, and then this is our safe snorting kit. I got this from Jolt Harm Reduction. I'd like to get some more of those. Then the nurse would ask them if they had any abscesses or whatever, go through the motions. And then we would explain that in a true safe consumption site, it would be well stocked. There would be oxygen, all kinds of life-saving measures available, ready at a moment's notice. I would have everything that a drug user would need to stay safe. That's why I have this stuff. I know it seems like a lot, but how could I convey that message without these props? I can't. So this is what I'm trying to do. Then the person, okay, we'll just take this. See, they would take this little kid here or whatever, and then we would direct him back here to the safe consumption room. And we tell them that they could stay in here for 3 minutes and we'll come check on them. And so you're probably wondering, why do I have this all dolled up? I guess I could have went the sterile route, but it's kind of cost prohibitive to get stainless steel, this and that. So I thought I'd just make it kind of hippy dippy. So that's my thought behind there. And I've got this pain chart. I've had a lot of people that, well, one woman broke down and cried because all the time she was injecting, she was trying to do it just like this. She did not know to come at it like that. People ask about this a lot too. So it's good education. Then I have this that they can go through and see, read. There's no hurry for them to come leave. I give them more than 3 minutes. But I thought this was very informative. And this is, they can look through there if they want to. This is about the best I could do. Make sure that I have a sharps container. Okay, so there's that. And then they would come back out and I would ask them, were you afraid? What kind of feeling did you have back there? Could you see that this would not be a problem? Then I would direct them over here to the social worker station. Okay, we got here signs of an opioid overdose. I've got here directions on what to do in case of an overdose, where to inject. Then we have these naloxone kits that I pass out. I get rid of anywhere from about 20 to 50 I take with me, but actually I could probably give away a lot more. Then if they want a sticker to put in their window, I have that. They get a fentanyl test strip and an education on how to use it, whether it's meth or whether they're just, cooking it up to what they think is heroin. Then I have like a to-go kit here. I have my donation box. Sometimes I get lucky. Then if they want a drug disposal bag, I have plenty of those. Or if they want any condoms, I make sure that nobody leaves unprotected. Just stuff like that. And I would explain that, somebody would be sent home with a sharps container. Then this is the whiteboard to where people can write whatever they feel about it, and we'll take their picture. We don't associate their face with anybody's name, but it just goes to show that there are human beings that are walking through this, not just figments of my imagination. So there you have it. I hope you like it, and come see.
So my name is Dennis Cushon, and I'm president of Harm Reduction Ohio, which is a statewide harm reduction group that promotes harm reduction practices such as naloxone distribution, Narcan distribution, medication-assisted treatment, and other related issues. Where probably best known is we're the only licensed lay distributor of Narcan, naloxone in Ohio, and we're the largest distributor of Narcan in Ohio. We'll give away about 15,000 to 25,000 Narcan kits this year. We do about half of those through our online service. If people go to harmreductionohio.org, you'll see you can order it for free online. And we'll mail it to you. It's confidential. You have to give your name and address, of course, and answer some questions. We'll mail it to you within 48 hours, so you'll get it promptly. The Ohio Department of Health. So we use our license and our authority to distribute naloxone to all 88 counties anytime. We also have a network of 60 plus lay distributors.
All right, everyone. Allow me to introduce our next guest, Judy Dodge, County Commissioner from Montgomery County.
I'm Judy Dodge, and I'm Montgomery County Commissioner here in Montgomery County. I've been a commissioner since 2006. You ask about the opiate overdoses and how that's affected our community. Back in 2017, these opiate overdoses just increased like crazy, and our community and our region got together and said, we've just got to stop this. So we all sat down, we got together with the commissioners, we got with the Sheriff's Department, social workers, Adamus, and basically came up with different ways to try to help people financially as well as emotionally to, get our hands around this epidemic. Then in 2019, my gosh, the overdose deaths went down big time. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, they've gone up again. So again, we are meeting and trying to figure out how to best resolve this issue, because I think a lot of this is so many individuals are staying at home and they're depressed, as we all are, and they're not okay. And so they reach for a drug that will make them temporarily feel better. And unfortunately, a lot of them die from this. So we are very concerned. We are working very hard, as well as public health, to try to do as much as we possibly can to stop this epidemic. Well, I was asked to serve on as a liaison on the Community Overdose Action Team, or they call it COAT. And that started in 2017, and that's how we were able to get everybody together to try to stop this awful, awful thing. So that's sort of the beginning of when I became familiar with families of addicts. And I just think they do an absolutely wonderful, wonderful job in our community. Thank heavens they're here. Here's what I would say, and that is there are people here in the county that care care about you, and they're trying to understand the reason that you're going through so many different crises in your life. Family of Addicts is one of them. And I would basically urge any citizen here in Montgomery County who has a family member, a friend, or themselves is going through this problem. There are so many resources out there that want to help you. Don't be afraid to ask. I always say it's okay not to be okay. And so Family of Addicts, they just do a wonderful job of getting you as well as your family and friends together and trying to work through these situations. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to ask. This is what we're here for. On behalf of Montgomery County, the county commissioners, Judy Dodge, Debbie Lieberman, Carolyn Rice, we have a proclamation here for your rally. And basically it's wishing you well and saying that you just do a great job, and we extend our heartfelt, congratulations and gratitude to the Family of Addicts for their years of service to residents here in Montgomery County, and basically saying, please accept our warmest wishes on this very special occasion.
What an honor it is to receive a proclamation for FOA on behalf of Judy Dodge, the County Commissioner from Montgomery County. As I look back on past rallies, one of the most special moments for me is this balloon launch. Even though we're not in person to celebrate this together, we're still going to do this. Just like in recovery, we don't stop. No matter if we have to run or walk or crawl, the important thing is that we keep moving. So please join me in this beautiful balloon launch. All right, how we doing out there? We good? All right, allow me to introduce Helen from the Adamus board.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Today, right now, we've got Helen from the Adamus board, who's going to be giving us more or less a bird's eye view approach of how the Adamus board serves the community, maybe some of the partnerships that they're currently working with, and how the work that they do trickles down and helps serve all those individuals and families in recovery. So Helen, thank you very much for being here today. If you could give us a bird's eye view of who you are, what you do, and how your organization serves the community.
Well, I'm the Executive Director of the Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board for Montgomery County. The way in which we serve is that we have a responsibility for planning and funding all of the behavioral health services on behalf of Montgomery County. So there are a number of programs and partnerships that are created with our work with a variety of organizations in the community, including FOA.
So how exactly does the Adamus board partner with local agencies? What does that mean?
So primarily what it means is we have a number of nonprofit organizations that provide services. We don't. We provide the funding. We contract with those entities to provide the services across the entire community. So we're looking at the entire reach of Montgomery County. In some cases, our reach goes into other counties through other partnerships with other boards like us. We fund about $17 million of services, recovery services within our community. That work for us has grown over the years. When we had the first indications of the huge heroin overdose challenges within the community, we began to create as well as collaborate in order to find solutions for that. Probably the biggest one being our community's Community Overdose Action Team. Over the last 4 years, we've continued to launch new programming as well as support the programming that seems to be working. And we've been able to build upon some of the recovery services that we simply didn't have in this community. To be quite honest, the heroin overdose issue hit us like deer in the headlights. So we've been trying to respond to that and to really build a strong continuum of recovery services since that epidemic first hit. It's not done, and we're still creating, but it's given us a chance to really look at the need in the community.
Great. I agree 100%. So what would you say from the Adamus Board perspective, what's different about FOA? What makes them such a special particular group?
I think it starts with, and I'm going to throw Lori's name out there. Everybody knows Lori Arion. And it starts with her because we met Lori maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Before she was a household name, she came and talked to us and really engaged us in the conversation and the passion for working with people in recovery. And notice I said working with, because she was a very conscious advocate in that work. And she was just getting started. And I look at what she has built since that time, the way that she has engaged with people, the way that she has brought recovery out of the shadows. And that's what needed to happen. We talk a lot about stigma in our business, and that was one of the areas of extreme stigma. People would say, let folks pull themselves up by the bootstraps. Well, none of us has ever pulled ourselves up by the bootstraps. It comes from relationships, and it comes from understanding what people are dealing with on a daily basis. And she made it very real for people.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. So, and I love the work that you guys have done with the task force and with all of the agencies kind of partnering together. So what advice or suggestion would you give outside counties, maybe smaller counties that may or may not have as much funding available, but what suggestions would you give to smaller organizations on how they can work together to help serve this population?
I would say to them, don't be stymied by the fact that you don't have dollars. Dollars are important, but the resources include people being engaged, finding ways to listen and listen to lived experience, and then making that lived experience part of your work team, finding ways to create peers who can work with folks who are still struggling with addiction. That's a really important piece of what we've learned and what we're trying to do. We have a certified peer program that puts people through some training so that even if you want to be a peer, sometimes you need some additional training so that you're able to separate the heart work, the lived experience work, from what it takes to be able to really help people move on without enabling. There are a lot of aspects of that. And so we've been able to engage in training so that we have people with lived experience who are able now to role model and walk side by side with people who are still being challenged by their addiction and helping them to connect to services without reinforcing the behavior that got them started on the negative pathway. And that's an important piece of this that doesn't take a lot of money. It takes time, it takes support, but then the money piece is important too when you think about how you get information out there and how do you support the marketing and the communication so that people begin to understand what they're seeing and know how to interact or intervene when necessary.
I love it, most definitely. So, I've worked with a lot of folks in recovery, and I think that there is a very common theme when it comes to people who enter recovery and start to get their lives back on the right track. And it's very natural for folks to want to get in that helping arena. Right. And I think a great place to start is that peer support certification. So if someone's interested in that peer support certification, what are some of the requirements? How do they engage? What's the process like for them to get certified as a peer recovery specialist?
Well, we actually contract for that service with Goodwill Easter Seals of the Miami Valley. And part of the training requires people to be on a successful pathway on their own. So it means a year or so of sobriety and some successes along the way that have stabilized them in their own sense of recovery. And then being able to utilize their life experience as a model for helping to mentor and to help people regain their own relationships. That's another part of it. You know, when the bridges get burnt over time, how do you rebuild a level of stability in your life so that you don't find yourself relapsing repeatedly? The other piece, though, is understanding about relapse. You know, that's part of recovery. And rather than blaming, we have to find ways for people to understand that as part of the process, but seeing the gains that people make in that process and the way in which people own their stuff, so to speak, right, as they're being successful. That too is a great role model for folks to understand. You don't go from 0 to 100 in just a few seconds or maybe even in a year's time, but utilizing all of those stages of recovery, both to gain stability and to demonstrate to others, you can do it. You can do it.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. So, is it safe to say that family members or individuals seeking treatment reach out to the Adamus board asking for help? Is that something that happens quite often, or is that something that folks kind of know that you guys aren't a service provider and that other agencies do that, or do folks reach out to you guys directly?
It happens both ways. People will call us for referrals. We also have an app, Get Help Now Montgomery County, which has a variety of resources loaded onto it. And people will come to us through the app and ask for ways in which they can either get connected to treatment or get connected in ways to help others. Or they'll go directly to our providers who are also in that app or on our website. We provide a great deal of information. And then we have a group of organizations we call RAMCO. They are a closely affiliated group of recovery associated organizations, nonprofits, some of them. FOA happens to be one of them, which gets funding because of a leadership Dayton group that has made a commitment to providing resources to them through a ping pong. They pong with a purpose. Ping pong event they do on an annual basis, and they can get services, dollars through us, through the resources that are being collected through the Greater Dayton Brain Health Foundation on their behalf. So there are a variety of ways that we are connected into the recovery community. RAMCO is probably the biggest one, though, because they come together, they do family events, they do a lot of things for children, and they've been able to have their meetings as part of that organization. But for the pandemic, they do picnics and other kinds of events that bring people together in a healthy way so they can continue both to get information as well as remain healthy and to share their stories of success. So we've learned a lot about how to work with, and that's the important piece, work with people who are on their recovery journey.
Absolutely. And that is the best approach. Work with and not to and not for, to walk alongside and do with. I agree 100%. So another question I've had the experience and the privilege to work in several different organizations to where I know I do a lot of work hands-on with people in recovery, but I know that there's lots of levels of funding and organizational structure to where somebody in your role may not see the direct impact of the work that you do to see the actual lives transformed. So my question for you is, how close are you, or have you been, your organization, to actually seeing the lives transformed? And give me a good example of a recovery process that you have heard about or witnessed, that something that inspires you to continue doing the work that you do.
So one of the things that inspires me particularly is our recovery housing. And there's a program that we're affiliated with, because I try to get out and actually see the work in progress. One of them I'm especially probably connected to is Promise to Hope, which is a program that we offer for pregnant and parenting women. It gives them a place to live and to be connected to treatment services while they're on their recovery journey in those early stages, especially when they have young children, in order to help them to get stabilized to the point where when they leave there, they're really ready to be back in the community. When I get to go there, I get really, really encouraged by the connections between the women and the treatment providers, because the bond is so strong. And we've been able to really see success coming out of those kinds of programs. People need connections to other people. That's the biggest thing that we can offer. And by building the bond there and then having those people with whom they're bonded, help them get to, connect them to, not send them to, but connect them to. Again, back to that with, working with. We've seen some really strong successes. And so I do get to see that. And that's the stuff that keeps us really thinking about ways in which we can build an even stronger recovery system of care. We've got another one coming on board very soon. Our continuum of care continues to grow. 115 will have a full campus that complements all of the stages of recovery, and they'll be opening the full campus in just a couple of months. They already have services there, but the campus will be complete. And we're a partner with that programming as well, in having people that have a complete pathway to recovery in that campus. We're growing the community, really are.
I love to hear the passion and the optimism in your voice, because I know that this is challenging work. It's challenging to work with folks. It's challenging to deal with the stigma, and especially in the role that you're in, because of all the connections and the advocating that you do. So I just commend you guys, and on behalf of FOA, we sincerely appreciate the support, the donations, the time, the effort, and all the energy that you guys put into helping not just create recovery programs, but promote recovery programs and help these recovery programs come to life. So I guess my final question for you would be, let's say, Helen, that you meet somebody, you meet a family member of someone that's struggling with addiction. What's your go-to piece of advice for a loved one that has somebody that's struggling with addiction that doesn't know where to begin? What would you say to that person?
I would start talking to them about loving them through it, because they're going to need the connection. So many times we hear of the stories where people who are grappling with addiction are burning their bridges with family members, because it is hard. It is hard. But being able to stay connected in a healthy way, and really arming themselves with as much information as possible so they understand what the person is experiencing. So they can offer good guidance and counsel, and hopefully that connection to treatment. Don't give up. Don't give up. And that's hard sometimes, but also don't reinforce the behaviors that create the real cracks in the relationship. You have to be firm, but at the same time, you have to be compassionate, and you might be the person that is able to get them into service that saves a life. I'm always focused there. How do we save this person's life? And helping family members understand it really does come down to that.
Absolutely. Great advice. I agree 100%. So Helen, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your service and commitment to the community, to seeing the growth of FOA. And everybody, this is a weird time for us all. So everyone's doing the best we can to continue to provide services, to continue to promote services, and just to educate folks that recovery is possible, recovery is beautiful. And thank you so much to the Adamus Board for all the hard work you guys do.
This next guest, very important. We're very grateful for them. They're the co-sponsors of the rally. Allow me to introduce Eric Berkheimer from Banyan Treatment Center.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We're here with Eric from Banyan Treatment Center, and he's going to be telling us a little bit about his organization, kind of how he got into recovery and how he and his organization actually supports people in recovery. So, Eric, welcome. We are super glad to have you here today. If you could tell us a little bit about your organization and who and how you guys serve the community.
Sure. Thanks. Thanks for the opportunity. So, again, my name is Eric Berkheimer. I work for an organization called Banyan Treatment Centers. Currently, right now, we have 11 locations spread over 5 different states. But it didn't start there. You know, I've been with the company about 2.5 years, and I would probably say right at my point of entry in January of 18 is where our company really started to grow. I mean, by leaps and bounds. Literally, the company, just shy of 10 years ago, started off as you really can't call it bed, with an IOP, but really like a 20-head, roughly IOP in Pompano Beach, Florida. And from there, here we are, with 11 facilities. Services range from, your common primary SUD, substance abuse disorder, detox, residential, partial IOP. We also, as an organization, branched off a few years ago and started doing primary mental health, where, from an inpatient perspective, and we do that now at a couple of locations. And, probably over the next year, we're probably going to add a few more facilities. The organization keeps growing. It's a wonderful organization to work for. I've been working in the field myself for 9 years.
Good.
And sober, over 10 years.
Yeah.
And the one thing I could tell you is I've been, crazy industry sometimes to work in, ups and downs and, different things happen. And I've been fortunate to really just been attached to 2 facilities. And ironically, the facility that I worked for just under 7 years is now a facility that Banyan owns.
Wow. Amazing. Good stuff.
Yeah. So
great story. Great story.
It's been a blessing. Again, I've had my ups and downs in the industry, and but all in all, I can always fall back to the point that I get an opportunity, have been given an opportunity to work a job that's a little bit more than a job.
Yeah. Yep.
Obviously you go to work because you got to earn for your family, but when you can have something else driving you, that's the best of both worlds for me.
I agree 100%. I agree all day long. So tell me a little bit about how you were first introduced to FOA, and maybe a little bit about how your organization was introduced to FOA.
Sure. So ironically, I would probably say I met Lori. I was actually still in Florida. I got sober in Florida myself in 2010.
Okay.
A little over a year into sobriety, got an opportunity to start working in the field. And my entry point into the field was, on the admissions side. So I started off as an entry-level admissions coordinator. And, recovery started giving me a little insight into the important stuff, I like to call it, where, it wasn't about making money at a job. It wasn't about asking for things. It was about going to work and doing my part as an employee, and then just letting the chips fall where they're supposed to, right?
Yep.
So just with that mindset, I just started moving up, and by 2015, I was executive director of an admissions department, servicing 300 beds.
Wow.
And, and prior to that, I wasn't very articulate, or, I just did the things that no one else wanted to do. And ironically, I used to swing a hammer in a union for years in my bad days. That was my skill set. So recovery has done so much for me. So fast forward into 2017, in our field, it's all about building relationships, as a provider. Obviously you want to be the organization that services people in need,
yeah.
right? I mean, that's what you want. And so me and Lori had connected, I'm down in Florida. She's up in Ohio. We connected. I started to learn a little bit more about her organization. And I had plenty of experience dealing with nonprofits all over the country, right? And just different missions and things like that. And one thing that I thought was very unique with FOA was the whole almost kind of like Al-Anon approach.
Okay.
Where, not only was her organization servicing the individual afflicted, but she had, dedicated support meetings where she was bringing the family into the mix and giving them a platform to feel comfortable. And I think that really segues into my story, because one thing that I can tell you is at age 29, 2010, was the first time in my life I ever took accountability for why I was in the position that I was in. I no longer was playing the victim. It wasn't my parents' fault. It wasn't anybody. It wasn't circumstances. I made a series of decisions that got me into a position in life at an early age where I basically gave up my ability to make decisions. And I was run by, the addiction. So having said that, I started to think about FOA and what they were doing. And I thought about my parents, right?
Yeah.
And I remember 23, 24 is when my addiction really started to, it was no longer, it was not social anymore for me.
Right.
It was in a dark room or it was in an alley. And I remember just my parents just being so embarrassed, you know what I mean? And full of shame and thinking it was their fault. And, basically being recluses from their family. And their friends and, the embarrassment, and they didn't want to talk about it to anybody. And it was just like this big problem that, I was almost causing them to go out into the world and lie and cover up for me. And because they didn't have a place where they felt comfortable about just saying, we don't know what to do.
How common is that with family members to feel like that, would you say?
I think it's huge.
Yeah.
I think it's huge. I think families, the one thing that I've learned along my way, and I really started to pick up on this from actually like our chief clinical officer at one of our programs in Lake Worth, Florida. Her name's Dr. Tammy Malloy. She's worked in the field for years. And I remember she's one of the first people that I really started to hear these words about the power of shame, guilt, right? And so I started reflecting over the years about, I really feel like those emotions, or whatever you want to call them, are essentially more powerful than the drug itself. You know what I mean? Because it keeps families from bringing the issue to the surface, and we just kick it under the rug and we make excuses and we lie about it instead of just attacking the problem head on and getting it out there. And I think what a lot of families don't understand, and I think it has gotten better over the years, and Lori's and FOA is a contributor to this, is I think what families are doing more than they did like 10 years ago is they're talking about things.
Yes.
They don't feel as embarrassed saying that my son has this thing or my daughter struggles with mental health issues. So I think, amidst all the bad press we get in terms of, we're not making a dent in the problem's getting worse, I think there are some good things happening in the world where we're becoming a little more comfortable as a society, talk about these issues.
Absolutely.
And not shun people.
Absolutely.
And, so that was really
100%.
one of the attracting things to FOA to me.
Shout out to Lori for the national networking. I think that's obviously one of Lori's greatest strengths and one of FOA's greatest strengths as well, to be able to network across the country, but not only give the parents a safe place to be able to talk about the problem, but also to give us in recovery a safe place to share our story with the families. Because it's, you're not going to see family members that often come into a 12-step meeting, or especially a closed meeting, and just learn about the addiction or learn about the recovery process. So just having a safe place for families to come to collectively share their experience, strength, and hope, to give each other hope. Hands down, much needed. And, kudos to Lori on putting this all together. It's amazing. Great stuff.
Of course. And I think another thing that needs to kind of be said is, just the power of connection.
Yes.
Right. again, something that we've really struggled with, obviously during the given times that we're in. I've really felt for the new person coming out of treatment the past 6 months, where they haven't had the natural ability to go to a meeting every day. Like I literally went to a 12-step meeting every day for over a year.
Same here.
I had to, right? Like I needed these people. I was so afraid of my thoughts and what they were capable of doing that like I constantly needed to be around people to redirect just the craziness that was going on in my mind.
What is your clean date, Eric?
So my clean date, ironically, and you'll get a chuckle out of this, is April Fool's 2010.
April Fool's? So
April Fool's 2010.
Good deal. So so it's ironic. We have Eric and Eric doing this interview, and my clean date's February 23rd, 2010. So we've been, right there close by each other, man. So it's 10 years in recovery is a long time,
Yeah, man.
So what would you say to the addict, right, who is just entering their recovery for the first time, or maybe it's the 10th time? They don't believe in themselves. They don't believe in the process. What do you share with those folks? Because I know you do this work day in and day out. What's your message for those folks?
So I tell you what, I always go back to. Now, I had this guy that was probably one of the most influential guys in my life. I met him when I was 25 at one of my first attempts to really just start to step into the rooms. And his name's David Sees from, he lives in Hurricane, West Virginia. And he's got couple decades clean. And this guy, even though I didn't fully surrender, some of the things that he said to me completely changed my life. And I remember one of the things that he told me, he said, put yourself in position to recover. Right?
Yes.
So my message to the person struggling is you're running the streets, and, just being in that same stuck misery, like your chances of having a moment are like slim to none, right? And I can tell you this, my last treatment center, and I went to 12, right, in my 20s. I went to 12, right? And then, jail stints and, all the stuff that we go through. My motive for wanting to get clean at my last treatment center, March 31st, flying down to Florida, I didn't have any hope that I was going to get clean. I really thought that it was another treatment center just going to bail me out of eviction consequences, no money consequences. So I was running again, right? So my motive was not, hey, I want to get clean, right? Well, what did I do? I put myself in a position where something could happen.
Yes.
Right? And I remember, like, the counselors were great at the treatment center. And the truth of the matter is, I didn't really learn too much more different than I had heard at the other 11 treatment centers, because they were all good.
Yep.
Right? Like, I don't care. Like, pretty walls don't make a good treatment center, right? A pool doesn't make a good treatment center. It's the people, right? It's the people within those confines that, just have a skill, and I tell you what, I remember about 3 weeks into it, an H&I came in, and there was this guy, I still remember his name. His name was Chris Clancy. And he came in, and he was from Boston. And, here I am, a West Virginia guy. Like, in my mind, not much in common with a guy from Boston. And I remember him looking at, like, he said, 5 years prior to that, he said, I was in treatment center about this big. There's about 100 patients. And someone had said to him, he was like, statistics say that 2 of you are going to stay clean and sober. And he said, I was so beat up that I was looking around for the other person who that was going to be. Right. And that shifted something in me, that day. Now, obviously, I've probably had those moments a lot that I just never recognized them for what they were. And, there were things that I had to do to nurture that, right? But things started to wake up with me, but I was in position to receive that. You know what I mean? So that's my message to the new person. Absolutely. Is don't pay no attention to your mind, because your mind's what's trying to kill you. That's where your problem centers. You know what I mean? So pay attention to what your feet do.
So many good points. So many good points. You know, one of my biggest messages for folks in early recovery, and one of the first questions I ask somebody when I meet them is, how many times have you tried to get clean before? And in your experience, you said it took 12. In my experience, it was 3 or 4. I just know that there's so many layers of denial that we have to go through. At first, we think we can do it on our own, and then we can do it without support, without a sponsor, without the counselor, without all the resources, right? But eventually we get to a place where we're so beaten, right? And when we're willing to listen, bam, that's when that person speaks that recovery life into us, plants that seed that you never forgot throughout your entire recovery, that you'll never forget for the rest of your life. And, you know, sometimes that's just what it takes. You know, so I definitely, you know, congratulations on your recovery. Congratulations on everything that you're doing to serve the folks that you serve. I mean, it sounds like you're in a great position to serve folks from multiple states. I mean, you have a great job, you have passion, you have purpose. You are doing everything that recovery has taught you to do. Right? And that's a beautiful thing. So let's end with this. And I know you talked a little bit about the guilt and the shame that sometimes the family members experience. So what's one piece of advice that you would give a family member that maybe hasn't came out and talked about their loved one's addiction, or hasn't came out and found experience about the recovery process? What suggestion would you give a family member?
Be vulnerable. Be vulnerable.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Lay the ego and the pride at the door. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, all the things that you think other people are thinking about you are not true. Right? You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, most people, especially like, you know, in our inner circles, you know, and those are the people that we shy away from in these moments, right? We don't want to let them know. We don't want to let them in. So what we do is we carry that burden, right? And what's blocking us? Ego, pride. You know, I'm an adult. I should be able to lick this on my own. And my opinion is, and again, I do that now. You know what I mean? And I have to check myself. You know what I mean? So we practice these things, but that's my message is be vulnerable. And find someone to be vulnerable with, lay it out there. I tell you what, just talking about it and getting that stuff off your chest is so freeing.
Man.
So freeing.
Absolutely. You know? I agree 120%. So, and with FOA, that's a great place to be vulnerable. It's a great place to open up and make new connections. So again, on behalf of FOA, we 100% appreciate your agency's support. We appreciate your passion for recovery. We appreciate knowing that there is a resource that's available to our folks in our community that are struggling with addiction, and that we have, because oftentimes, you know, the local treatment centers aren't always the solution for a lot of people. So having that resource in our back pocket that we can say, hey, we know there's a treatment center in multiple states. Let's try something different. So we appreciate you. We appreciate your support. And again, on behalf of FOA, thank you, and thank your organization for everything that you do. And we appreciate everybody watching. This is a crazy time for all of us, and for this virtual rally to be held in such a way that we're still doing the best we can to reach people. If you're struggling, definitely please reach out. So folks, thanks for tuning in.
All right, everyone, the moment we've been waiting for. This gentleman I'm about to introduce, he has been to Capitol Hill. He created this movement to bring action against Purdue Pharmaceuticals. I couldn't be more grateful for this guy. He's a beautiful author. He's a speaker. He's just inspiring. Allow me to introduce my friend, Ryan Hampton.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the final, I guess, part of the FOA annual recovery rally. You know, FOA is a really special place for me, and Dayton specifically has a really special place in my heart. I wish I could be there with every single one of you today and give you a hug and see you all and participate in this event together. But I think it's important for us to realize that, you know, even in these times of physical distancing and what some may call social distancing, we are still all able to keep emotional proximity and build community and keep our faith. Because I can tell you, for me, you know, these last several months have been difficult, not being able to plug in to my community, and that means all of you as well. And the good news is that I am able to wake up in the morning, grab my coffee, and turn on a Zoom or a Skype, and there you all are, just like you are right now. So, I was thinking about what is it that I could be sharing with FOA, today during what's this important month for our community, and I think I want to share a story, and it's a story of why I decided and how I decided to find my own voice, in the recovery space. I'll never forget, the time that I was sitting in that kind of old beat up green lounge chair on the deck where I used to have a Saturday morning meeting with my community. It was old and cold. It was an early and particularly cold November morning, almost 5 years ago in Pasadena, California. The mood was really a lot of confusion, and we sat in this round circle like we always did for our weekend check-in meetings at my sober living. But this one was kind of different. Something was wrong, and you could feel it. You could see it in everyone's face, and it was really silent. You see, at this point in my life, I was still holding on for dear life. I had walked into that recovery house less than a year earlier with nothing but the clothes on my back. I was still on public assistance. I had no job, no transportation. I was suffering from severe depression, unresolved trauma. I was confused. And more than anything, I was really, really tired. I knew how hard it was to hold on. And some days I just wanted to throw in the towel and completely give up. Go back to where I was comfortable, which was in isolation. It was on the streets. It was wandering in this never-ending spiral of drug use. And as dark as that sounds, that's where I actually felt welcomed at the time. That's the place where I didn't feel judged. That's the place where I wouldn't worry if I was being told that I was different and that I didn't belong. And on those dark days when I felt like there was no end in sight, I'd oftentimes pick up the phone and I'd call my mom. My mother, who was nearing her 70s at this point, she always had a way to have a wise word with me. Now, her tone is really soft and it's slow. She'd remind me that, when I was 15 years old and my father went to prison and our family had completely lost everything, that I would stay up with my little sister and do homework with her while she was out working her third job just to keep clothes on our back and food on our table. I can remember the times when she would go to McDonald's and things were extra tight at our house to get 29-cent hamburgers on the 29-cent hamburger day, just enough for me and my sister to have for the week and freeze the extras for the days that she wouldn't be home because she would be out working until 9 at 10 or 10 o'clock at night, since being up since 7:30 in the morning on her second or third job. She would remind me that as long as we stuck together, that everything would be okay. Now, my mom never gave up. But even though we had each other, loneliness was really a defining theme for us, particularly in my earlier ages. For the better part of my teenage years, we were seemingly unwelcomed at the church that I grew up in. Our family story of my father's incarceration was big news in our small town. People we would spend holidays and birthdays with when I was younger would look the other way when we walked into Sunday worship services. We were no longer welcome because we were different and we were on our own. When we would be shunned or forced out, whether it was from the church I received my first communion at or the house that I grew up in, when we felt like we were on the brink of total and utter collapse as a family unit, my mom would be the backbone of our strength. And she would tell us that it's going to be okay because together we would build a better home and a place where we would belong. Mom would remind me that when all seems at all is lost in the world and things seem like they're just dire and bleak, that there's always a sense of hope. That hope can carry us to a place where we do belong. So I completely understood how my roommate Nick felt when he had come to me the night before and told me that he had lost all hope. I knew how it felt when he told me that he was using again, that he couldn't stop on his own. Nick wasn't just any roommate. He was my roommate. He was 24 years old and he had the entire world in front of him. But Nick didn't think so. He had no insurance. He had no money. He had no absolution in sight. He was begging for help. And to top it off, he would be unwelcome at our recovery house at the stroke of midnight. Now, the rules were the rules at this recovery house, and I couldn't do anything about that. It was simply put completely out of my control. I had felt completely powerless. Now, I can remember looking at the clock and getting this anxious feeling as I saw it hit 11:43 p.m. and we still didn't have a plan. Wait a second, I was thinking, doesn't the Pasadena hospital, like right down the street from us, have a medical and mental health detox unit? Shouldn't they be able to accept Nick there and, you know, get him medically cleared and call us when he's cleared in a day or two or three, and we'll bring him right back here to the house and do what we do and get him back up on his feet? And I was like, yes, that makes a lot of sense. So let's just do that. Let's get him over to the hospital and let them do what they do and send him back to us, and we'll do what we do. Except that night when he left for the hospital, that was it. That was the last time I saw him. He went to that hospital, my friend Nick, and he waited. When he got there, he was treated as if he was a second or third class citizen. He wasn't even seen by a doctor. He showed up, he told them that he couldn't stop using heroin, that he was fearful for what would happen to him. Now, imagine this with me for a second. A hospital, not just any hospital, but one of the best and most renowned hospitals in the United States of America, told my friend that they couldn't help him. And instead, they had sent him on his way by himself with nothing more than a piece of paper with a bunch of 800 crisis lines on it that he could call the next morning if he was willing. I think every single one of us, all of us on this call together, know what it feels like to be turned away, to be unwelcomed, and asked to try the next house on the block. It is an absolute defeating feeling. So the next morning, sitting in that old green chair, I knew it was coming. I knew what the owner of the house was going to tell us. He didn't have us circled up there 4 hours early to break great news to us. And then he spoke. He started and he said, you know, guys, this is just what happens. He said, people die. And last night, Nick overdosed and died just a few blocks away from here. He continued and he said, I don't know what else to add to that except to tell you what I've been telling you since day one. And that's that sometimes people have to die so others can recover. The rage, the absolute rage of that statement. It took me really months to understand what had happened that day. Nick was always top of my mind wherever I went, and he still remains top of my mind today. I didn't know it then, but his death sent me down a journey to ask the question, why? Why is this happening? Now, 4 years ago, that journey led me to a union hall right down the street from my sober living. I showed up there with over 100 friends of mine, friends of Nick's and friends of other friends who we had lost to overdoses that year, to stick that question to our community. Why? It was election season 2016 and caucuses were happening all across the state to elect delegates to the national party conventions. By this point in my recovery, early recovery, we had already lost over a half a dozen friends, people we loved and people we cared about, to preventable overdoses. We were desperate for a solution, and we were desperate to be heard. It made me remember those days when my mom was working late, and she used to have me walk to my grandmother's house, where we would stay until she could pick us up. My grandmother would take us to a community town hall or a city council meeting to occupy the time. She'd teach my sister and I how laws were made, how civic participation worked. That year in 6th grade, when I arrived to school as an outsider, I actually ran for class president to find belonging. I put up posters, I called my classmates, I visited them at addresses that I had found in the yearbook, and I took the possibility of making 6th grade policy change seriously. And while I won that election, it actually made me feel like I was part of something at a young age finally in my life. So in a sense, I was kind of hardwired for this solution when my friends and I showed up to that union hall in 2016. That was the second time with my name on a ballot. And although this felt a very, very long stretch from 6th grade, I knew that for us to be heard, I had to step up and become a part of. Now, we had decided a few weeks earlier as a community that our organizing strategy would be to register me as a candidate for election to the convention, which would at the very, very least give me the opportunity to speak to our community. I would be guaranteed a 30-second slot to tell our community my story and the story of the friends that I had lost and our community had lost, and Nick, and ask them to do something about it. Ask them to be a part of the solution. We had zero intention to win. All we were doing was yearning really to be heard. But the result was something that has guided me in my advocacy for the past 4 years. We showed up as outcasts, but we left that union hall feeling a part of our community. We had worked the line of hundreds of people waiting outside to cast their ballots. We fanned out in groups of 2 or 3 or 4 to share our stories and the stories of the friends that we had lost along the way. We couldn't get a full sentence out without somebody telling us their story, how they lost a loved one to an overdose, how they grew up in an alcoholic household, or how their brother or sister had just entered treatment. It was if the community, our entire community, was waiting for our permission so that they could come out of the shadows. That day, we were community organizers. We just didn't know what to call it at the time. It is, let there be no doubt, it is through my personal recovery that I have found resiliency and community. But it is through organizing that I have found passion and a purpose for change. Many of those community members and makers from that day went on to be our biggest allies. They've worked with us to champion life-saving legislation such as mental health parity in my own state, standards on a state level and federal level for the first ever sober homes living standards regulations published by the federal government. Today, right now, there are over 25 million Americans, just like my friend Nick, who are being told that they are unwelcome. People who are struggling with a substance use disorder, and the vast majority being told that they are unwelcome to treatment, they are unwelcome to housing, and they are unwelcome to the critical long-term recovery supports that would prevent another overdose death. Let's be clear about this. You all have the power to change that. You all are empowered to do that work. You have shown up here today for this recovery rally, not just to celebrate your own personal recovery, but to get involved in a community that is passionate about change. We have an election that's coming up in November. I would urge every single one of you to use your recovery voice at the ballot box. They say there are 23 million Americans who live in long-term recovery, people just like you and people just like me. If we become a force to be reckoned with at the ballot box and policymakers start to see us not just as quote unquote addicts and alcoholics, but see us as the voters that we are, the faces and the voices of recovery in our community who are active in civic participation, I guarantee you, we will get treated differently. We have to do it. It's not just our responsibility as people in recovery, it's our responsibility as citizens of this country and of this state. I don't care who you vote for. This is not a partisan issue. It's not Republican, it's not Democrat, it's not independent, it's not red, it's not blue. We've worked with policymakers on both sides of the aisle who have done extraordinary things for this community. But we can be a force to be reckoned with. By voting, we can ensure that our voice is counted. We can ensure that we have a place at decision-making tables when it comes to funding treatment, housing, recovery supports, family supports. It's all interconnected. So please, get out there, register to vote, go make your voice heard in your community. You have the power to change this, but it's going to take a lot of work. Thank you all for welcoming me here today, and I can't wait to get back to Dayton to give you all a big hug, hopefully sooner rather than later.
So there you have it. Another year down. I know it was a little unorthodox, but guess what? We did it together. I couldn't be more proud of the whole FOA family and the recovery family. This is what it's all about, coming together. You know, I just want to take a moment to give Lori Arion a shout out. I say this every year at the rally, and I mean it every year I say it. Anytime I have an opportunity to speak on her, I say this. I am forever in debt to her. She saved my life. The FOA family saved my life. And she truly is going to be my forever friend, along with my FOA family. I love you all. Can't wait to see you next year. Free hugs for everybody. Take care.
I just encourage anyone out there that's looking to, donate to an organization, help an organization out. If you want to learn more, by all means, I believe this Sunday, we're having our virtual rally from 3 to 5, but by all means, plug in, learn a little bit more, get to know Lori and the team. But I guarantee you, this is a great organization to support and, help them, move their mission forward, which is simply just, helping those, afflicted with addiction and mental health issues.